House staffers as part of their investigation into Russia's election meddling and any potential ties to the Trump campaign. Interviewers sat down with former White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus all day on Friday to ask him a lot of questions. With us now is Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell of California, a member of the House Intel and Judiciary Committees, who would like to sit down with Reince Priebus as well. It's nice to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Poppy.
So to be clear, you and neither committee has had a chance to question Priebus. We don't know what he told Bob Mueller's investigators. We know it lasted a long time on Friday. What would you ask him?
That's right. Well, I think he is a witness, particularly for the Judiciary Committee, around what actions the Trump team took after the election. We know that the Russians were in the Oval Office, the Russian ambassador and the foreign minister, and the president was kind of showing off about how he had just fired James Comey and he wouldn't have that problem when he dealt with the Russians anymore. And Reince Priebus was a witness to a lot of that when he was chief of staff. So any quid pro quo that would have taken place with the Russians, if that occurred, he'd be a witness to. And also, Poppy, I should note that we put in place over the summer sanctions against Russia for what they did in the election, and we are still seeing today that the White House has not implemented them. They're 15 days now past the deadline. So it's those kinds of, what did they do to benefit Russia post-election that Priebus would be relevant.
If there was something.
That's right.
So, there are some Americans who have fatigue, right, on this, and they say, show me the evidence, show me the evidence, show me the evidence, and that is incumbent on your investigations and both committees wrapping up the bipartisan efforts and on Mueller's investigation finishing up. No one wants to rush that, but have you seen, Congressman, anything to this point that you can say to Americans right now you will be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that there was collusion here between anyone on the Trump team and the Russians? Have you seen anything to that effect yet?
Well, Poppy, I remember about 7 months ago you asked me that question, and when you asked me that, we had not seen an email that said Trump, Russia, private confidential, and Don Jr. eagerly taking a meeting with the Russians. We had not seen an email between Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's lawyer, and Felix Sater, where Michael Cohen and Felix Sater said, we can engineer this for our boy and arrange a meeting between Donald Trump and Putin during the election. So, it does seem when you're in the thick of it that it doesn't move as fast as you'd like. But I think we've made tremendous progress in the media and also in the House and Senate investigations that have shown a willingness and an eagerness to work with the Russians.
And just to be clear, I don't think anyone should rush. So if I made it sound like that, I shouldn't have. But what I am saying is, have you seen anything? Are you saying those emails are evidence of collusion? Is there anything classified that you've seen that you cannot disclose, Congressman, what it is right now, but that you say, yes, this would prove to the American people beyond a reasonable doubt that there was collusion?
Those emails are absolutely evidence of an eagerness to collude. Now, what we're piecing together is whether it amounted to a working relationship. And what we're hoping to do is to continue to go through the witnesses. I would like the House Intelligence Committee's investigation to be as curious and as dogged as Bob Mueller's. And I'll give you an example. We interviewed last week Samantha Power. For over 4 hours, she sat and was interviewed as a witness that the Republicans had called. That's about 2 more hours than Jared Kushner sat in the witness chair because Jared Kushner didn't want to sit there and the Republicans didn't want to bring him in under subpoena. So why Samantha Power is more relevant to whether the Trump team worked with the Russians than Jared Kushner, I can't tell you, but it shows a lack of curiosity that I've seen in this investigation, and it's going to hamper, I think, our ability to tell the American people just what happened.
It sounds like you're saying, Samantha Power, of course, a former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, that was all about unmasking, but are you saying that your Republican counterparts on these committees are not curious enough to get real answers?
I think they're curious about the wrong things. And that's why I'm supporting having an independent commission. I think it would be an insurance policy against an investigation in the House that right now still has an asterisk around it. Now, Chairman Conaway, who's taken over for Devin Nunes, I think we've made a lot of progress under him. There's a lineup of witnesses coming in the next few weeks who I think are more relevant. And I hope, Poppy, I can tell you by the end of the year that we've made progress and have answered those questions.
All right, let me ask you a few other things before we go on bipartisanship, which would be so lovely to see a little bit more of in the House and in the Senate and just in Washington in general. Do you think that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer sort of playing nice with the president and vice versa is actually working?
Yes, and I think the dreamers who are counting on a solution so they're not removed need Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to negotiate with the president. So I fully support that.
But how is it working? I mean, the president has, made clear he wants things that they will never agree to in order to come to a deal on DACA, and then he ended the subsidies, which infuriated Democrats and a lot of Americans for health care on Friday.
Well, I think it's important that we show Americans that we are willing to work with the president if it means putting people to work, growing their paycheck, helping immigrants who are here living in the shadows of fear. But if he wants to, build a wall, pass policies that are hurtful or tax cuts that only help the wealthy, we're going to block it. I see it, Poppy, as being America's bouncers. We can let the good ideas in and work with him on that, and the bad ideas, we have to stand firm and not allow to go to the American people.
Congressman, we appreciate your time. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.